Okay. Hi guys, it is Friday morning and I have been thinking about making a video about Shadowlands and just my thoughts on it, anything and everything that I can think of. So it might end up being fairly jumbled, but I just like sharing my thoughts and figured people might be interested to hear what I have to say. So I have been playing beta, I'd say, for only a week now, because like I mentioned in my previous video, my Plaguefall one, I believe, I incorrectly created a level 1 character. I forgot to create a template character at level 50, so I was leveling in old zones for a week or two and was wondering where the new content was. And then when I created the template character, it sent me through to this whole area. So you start at the maw. This area was really annoying because you are unable to mount while you're in the zone. However, when I was reading some forum posts, there are a few mounts that actually work in the area, which makes sense, I think, because I personally saw a couple people mounted while I was in the zone. But out of the few, like, I didn't bother trying multiple mounts to see if I could mount up. If it says mounts are not allowed in the zone, that's what it says. The text pops up that says that. I don't go through and try a bunch of other ones. So I just naturally assumed you can't there. But the beginning questing for me was slow and uninteresting. A lot of RP that just felt like it dragged on for a while. And I probably quest differently than most people, where I don't pay attention to anything. I don't take in any of the lore. I try to do things as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, which is why whenever I quest, I pull like 5 mobs at once. I avoid healing myself until I'm almost dead, and I feel like I just know the limits of my character and class. That way, I just managed to quest pretty quickly. At the start of Battle for Azeroth, I was questing with the guild that I planned on raiding with, and we started off as a group, and I just kept pulling ahead. So in terms of questing experience, I don't really know what to say because I've always found questing extremely boring. I feel like after so many years of MMOs, the questing doesn't get that diverse. And truthfully, for me, I don't care that much about diverse quests. So, for example, I don't mind quests that just ask you to kill mobs all the time or loot stuff, whether it's from a body or from an object. I'm okay with that. Sometimes when they try to add in alternative quests where you have to get in a vehicle and then smash stuff around, spam one, which is like a punch for whatever the fuck you're in. I don't find those interesting at all. I actually find them more tedious because they tend to be slower. You're in a vehicle of whatever type and it moves slower, or maybe you're flying through on a griffin or a gargoyle and you have to like throw shit on the ground to kill things. So I don't find those interesting. I also came across a fair amount of bugged quests, which is annoying. I know that this is the beta, but it is also 1 month-ish until the game is released. And some of these bugs are game breaking. So, for example, this one I'm assuming is pretty important because, at least from what I can understand, you need to complete the campaign before you usually unlock other things. So I have not managed to unlock world quests yet. I googled it, I was reading some forums about it, but truthfully, I am not that interested in trying ultra hard to unlock it because doing world quests is actually something I dislike. I would always rather do dailies in a certain area. Anyways, overall, it has just been kind of confusing because, all right, when I was in Ardenweld, this is like the fairy zone, and oh no, 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 no. Okay, so when I was in Bastion, I did actually end up picking a side. It was confusing for me because I didn't read about covenants at all in the very beginning, and I didn't really plan to. I didn't care enough about it. So when I was questing in Bastion, there was a point in time where I had to choose a side. And I figured it was important because a pop up told me that you can't undo it, or maybe that, it would be difficult to undo kind of thing. So I did did I even bother looking them up? I don't think I did. I just picked a side. I did the campaign where basically once you get to an area, it makes you quest here, then you go here and quest here, then quest here. So I do think it's a little weird how I haven't discovered this area yet, because I would like to think that I was questing in the proper order, and I feel like after you complete an area, there should be another quest that encourages you to go over here or go over here. I do feel like I was kind of lost in terms of most of these zones. I also don't know if there are hardly anybody playing the beta, but after I reached 60, I have only been able to do Cause of Atonement, Theater of Pain. I did do this dungeon the other day, but there was actually a server restart while I was on the last boss. So that definitely has been really annoying because I've just been wanting to do these three other dungeons that I have not been able to do yet as Shadow. And the past few days, I have been queuing throughout the day, actually. Like, I would just log in, queue up, and then I would just do something else, waiting to see if the queue would pop. But it just doesn't. Sometimes it goes over an hour a lot, and sometimes there's a tank lacking a healer, or vice versa. But it just feels like there's no chance to do this. And I guess similarly, there's also no chance of doing Battlegrounds, which I was kind of curious about just to see what discipline would be like. But I feel like nowadays I log into beta and I'm like, there's nothing to do. Okay, when it comes to whether I plan on playing Shadowlands or not, I have been thinking about that a fair amount. And I do think I'm putting way more thought into it than I need to, because I think there's definitely nothing wrong with me paying $40 for the expansion, playing it for a month, and then quitting. That's basically what I predict is going to happen. And the main reason for that is the same reasons I have quit the past few years. Um, it's not fun to bug in this game, and it's even less fun for someone like me because I don't like the types of people I end up coming across. So I mentioned last time that when I was serious about Mythic Plus, some of the better players for that were kind of like clicky, immature. Uh, they obsessed over their Mythic Plus score. They were cocky about it. I just did not like most of those people. Or, like, I feel like if I was around those people a lot just to run Mythic Plus, it would frustrate me because I am just different. I know that gaming online, it can be a very detached thing where you're just playing with somebody and then afterwards it's like, who cares about them? There's somebody from online, right? But for me, I just tend to be very analytical. So I pay attention to everything about a person, and it helps me to determine what type of person they are. So, for example, when I was doing Mythic Plus, you often come across people who don't own up to mistakes. And there were people like that who I was running with regularly. And I hate people like that because I don't like it when people lack self awareness. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. So to be around someone who clearly makes a mistake and does not own up to it, I just find that to be like, I don't know. I actually view that very, very poorly, personally. I don't know if people have ever noticed when it comes to my own dungeon runs, or I don't know if people have watched me stream Dota, but if I make a mistake, I call myself out on it immediately. And I never feel negatively about doing that because once you notice a mistake, then you are able to go through the thought process of what could I have done differently or improvement for that matter. So that's something that maybe people don't ever think of that I think is actually a big thing to focus on a daily basis. Any small thing that you engage in, gaming or outside of gaming, there are always moments that you're learning. And I feel like when I was playing Mythic Plus, I came across so many people who don't learn shit. Like they would wipe on a boss, they wouldn't open their dungeon journal to read up on the spell that killed them. They would just throw their head against it the next time, hoping that what they died from previously doesn't kill them again. And I just don't feel like it's worth my time to continuously play with people like that. And truthfully, I don't see myself having that much interest in endgame because arenas PvP has been so different and so far gone compared to like BC Wrath days that there's zero chance I play arena. I have no interest in playing arena. Plus, if I wanted to play arena, I have to find a partner, get to know them, and then coordinate with them and just play with them all the time, that kind of thing. I feel like nowadays in gaming, it's hard for me to socialize or be eager to socialize. And unfortunately, part of that is because of my gender. I don't like interactions online that have an ulterior motive. And the unfortunate thing about that, okay, I have to change my camera. This fucking thing is distracting me. Um, so unfortunately, oh wow, it's still there. Unfortunately, the thing about that is you will never know why someone may be interacting with you. So I would always like to think that someone is talking to me because of credentials or skill outside of what I was born with, but you just never know. Obviously, that is something that I can't focus on because you just never know. But I know others may have a hard time understanding that, but I feel like after experiencing it through Dota a lot and just always having so much emphasis on your gender, I just get so fucking tired of it. And even the thought of that being a possibility can be frustrating. So that's not really the focus that I want to make when it comes to whether I decide to play or not. But there are just a lot of factors at play. So you guys know I'm very competitive, which is why if I did choose to play the game, I would want to play it seriously. And I don't have a problem with that. I like to dedicate time to a game if I'm really enjoying it and into it and want to be good at it. But if most of my feelings around the game end up being negative compared to positive, then I don't feel like I will ever see the reason to prioritize it. So Dota is the same way, where I wanted to be serious about it last year. I was playing it for months every day for like 4 to 5 hours a day. I was streaming it every single night and I was climbing MMR. I reached one of my highest points ever and I was really happy about achieving it. But on a daily basis, I feel like as I was playing, I was unhappy because I was too serious about the game. Where on days I went negative, like 1 and 3, I was really unhappy about it. And I don't want my emotions to be so closely tied to a game because I like to view things in the grand scheme of things. So, what is Dota gonna do for me if I have a high MMR? Nothing. I already have a good career, I have a good job. I don't plan on going pro in Dota, so why should I be getting myself upset about a number when this is supposed to be playing a game for fun? So, in terms of WoW, I just don't see myself seriously enjoying the game long term. Like I mentioned, I wouldn't do arena. I wouldn't do rated battlegrounds. I probably would not raid. I did not look into whether they have brought back 10-man raiding or if it is still 20 to 25, whatever that number is. but likelihood of me raiding is very, very low because I've written this in a comment ages ago. Not like people will find it, but it starts to feel like emotionless when I raid. I would show up, play for 4 hours, not have any connection to anybody that I'm playing with. And part of that is self inflicted because I don't socialize with guildies. I don't care to. So it's like feeling like a zombie for 4 hours, 3 to 4 nights a week, however long you raid. And even if I manage to kill a boss, my main motivation for that and excitement is that, oh, great, I got a recording of a new boss kill that is hopefully competitive if I'm in a competitive guild. Somewhat competitive, obviously, not hardcore. But I would be excited about having content for YouTube. And even if I got a piece of loot, I'm not overly ecstatic. I'm just like, oh, great, this is cool. But I just don't feel like those different variety of feelings is worth it. I want to feel like if I'm dedicating 12 hours a week or however long it ends up being, it has to be something I'm really enjoying and hopefully not stressing out about. And reading does not seem to be one of those. So I already mentioned earlier why Mythic Plus is probably just not going to be likely for me. I also get frustrated for Mythic Plus when people are classist, right? And I don't blame them because if you are competing for time, you want to bring the best classes that you can. And that just can suck if you happen to be a class that does not happen to be dealing the type of damage and like high burst damage that they designed it to be. Like those things are out of your control unless you re-roll just to do Mythic Plus, and I don't think I would do something like that. I personally am very attached to my priest. This is my main ever since 20. This has been my main ever since 2006 ish. And yeah, I love priests. I'm so familiar with priests. My retail priest has everything that I've ever achieved in the game, basically. All the rare mounts that I ever gotten, has my gladiator mounts, so I would never play another character outside of her. So when I mentioned in the very beginning that there's nothing wrong with me paying 40 bucks, playing for a month and quitting, it also just doesn't feel like I would get the enjoyment I would want out of it because the game supposedly is coming out at the end of October. And with my business, there might be a possibility that I am training a dog during the week or two when the game releases. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I don't have to play it hardcore when it first comes out. But I also remember what it's like at the beginning of an expansion. If you like being competitive about stuff, I know what it's like to start late, where you're not one of the earlier people to hit max level, and then you don't get to gear up and play groups with the people that are ahead. Like I just feel like um if I were to play and be like very, very slow at the start, maybe I would feel left behind in some way. I remember there being a disadvantage of some sort, but I kind of forget what it is right now. I don't want to spend too much time thinking about what it might be, but I just have things that might keep me busy from playing. I also plan on going to visit my brother the second week of November. That would keep me away for a week from the game. So I feel like with that much downtime, I don't want to start late. And yeah, I feel like I'm going to get to max level. I'm going to want to start running Mythic Plus, and then I'm going to be disappointed or frustrated for the same reasons that I felt previously. So I'd like to say that I will lean towards not playing the game because of everything I just said. I guess really quickly though, I'm going to talk through talents and gameplay just based off the dungeons that I've done so far. So when I was questing, I chose this talent because I just naturally thought, you get a mob low, and then you kill it, reset, another mob is low, you kill it. Like I have noticed, of course, that when I'm questing and I have a bunch of mobs dotted up, and once they all start reaching a low point, you just kill, tap, kill, and it's just great. But randomly, I didn't read this one the first time, or maybe when I did, I didn't actually put thought into it. But I actually have no idea what got me to reread this talent. But ever since I've gotten it, I just love it because dot classes always have the annoying routine of needing to use a million globals to dot up multiple packs. And even with misery, sometimes it's like vampiric touch, tab, and then you repeat that cycle 4 to 5 times, and it can just be slow and annoying. So this talent actually works fantastic for questing too, but also in dungeons, it is really great mainly because it also provides you instant damage afterwards. So even if it's single target, it's still doing damage greater than a Mind Blast would do, because Mind Blast does 1133, this does 1464. And this is something that I have noticed from my own experience, and I'm not sure if it is intended, but if you have this talent, you get 2 instant casts of this. And I don't think that's intended, because here it clearly says, after you cast 1 vampiric touch, your next one is instant. Next tends to mean just 1. So I think, I have no idea why when you cast this, you get 2 of this, but I feel like it's an absolute guarantee right now. I know for a fact every time I cast this, I get 2 instant casts of this. Which I think is why sometimes my dungeon damage manages to be so high, because on certain trash packs, I get to dot things up extremely quickly, and then I can cycle through other stuff immediately, like Shadow Crash, or like get a Devouring Plague up, start Mind Searing, stuff like that. So right now, I love this talent. And even though this is a great one, I would say it doesn't work very well for dungeons, just because it can be hard to correctly predict when a mob will die for it to refresh. So for this row, I don't have to talk about it over again. Movement speed is fantastic. You don't want to be slow like a warlock. I remember in previous expansions, I don't know if it's still the case, I'm assuming not, but warlocks would have no movement speed boost and they would just be slow, and movement speed is really, really good for any encounter, because there are times where they have, mechanics where half of the platform is going to be hit with heavy damage, and sometimes you can't predict how it will be placed. So even if you're kind of smack dab in the middle of it with a movement speed boost, you'll be able to make out of it just fine. But without it, you're kind of fucked. So this one obviously can be situational. I have not personally tried this talent, actually. So let me read it really quick. Instantly deals 590 shadow damage to enemies around the target and afflicts them with Shadow Word Pain. If the enemy is already afflicted by your Shadow Word Pain, Searing Nightmares damage is increased by 100%. Alright, so only usable while channeling Mind Seer. Interesting. I can't see why I would take this over Misery, and I'm thinking in a dungeon sense, because I feel like I would almost always rather have Shadow Crash than this, especially if you need to quickly dot targets. Because the thing is, even if they have Shadow Word Pain applied, I would feel weird if I didn't apply Vampiric Touch to them either. But the thing is, if you're okay with having just Shadow Word Pain on it, usually that means that the mobs won't last very long, where casting Vampiric Touch will actually matter. So in that case, Shadow Crash would be nice for that. For all those packs where you have elites and then you have, a bunch of non-elites, I always try to make sure I have charges of Shadow Crash for that. That was actually something that I started needing to pay more attention to, which is why some of my videos for these dungeons looks really sloppy, because I am not used to cooldown usage yet. And truthfully, I don't like how they changed this. I don't like how this is on a cooldown because it starts to make it feel precious. I think that's just because I'm not used to having all these cooldowns on a Shadow Priest. So with this talent build, I have this. I have, Shadow Fiend has always been there. I've got Shadow Crash, we've got Power Infusion, we've got Void Eruption. And I feel like I always have to cycle through all these different cooldowns. And also, when you're in a dungeon, eventually you need to learn which cooldowns are best to use when, right? Like, I wouldn't use all my charges of Shadow Crash if there's a mob coming up or a group coming up that has a bunch of little guys that would really benefit off of it. Also, the way Shadow Crash works, it says that if it hits a lone target, they suffer 35% increased damage from your next Shadow Crash within 15 seconds. So during boss fights, you don't want to throw this out by itself. You want to wait until you have at least 2 charges before you use it. That way you get the advantage of the increased damage. That was something that I started thinking about during some of these boss fights when I took this talent. But yeah, there have been plenty of times during these dungeons where I use Shadow Fiend on the trash pack right before the boss, and I'm like, ah, shit. But I don't have, not enough experience or practice to think about these things. So I have just been trying to avoid holding them and just continuously use them because that's why I don't like this change. When they make it a cooldown, it makes me feel like I need to use it in the best and most meaningful way possible. When sometimes, no, not really. You just want to make sure that you're efficient with it. So you have to like weigh that balance. I've talked about this row. So unfortunately, they nerfed Mind Bomb. That makes me really sad actually because during those runs, I loved Mind Bomb with Sephuz. That was like the highlight of those runs. That I would be able to use that on every single trash pack and get that haste buff like clockwork. But now it's a Disorient, which is garbage. This talent is more like for arenas or something. So I would always take this because nowadays there are so many things to interrupt in dungeons that having that reduced 15 seconds is really important and makes a difference. And silence is pretty nice, right? You can just throw it out instead of needing to interrupt. So you can always precast it on a mob that, is known for healing and they're about to die or something like that. Yeah, I just don't think these other 2 talents are very useful. So, sorry, I keep touching my nose, but I think I've gotten it itchy to the point of no return. Hopefully I don't keep touching it too much. For row 40, I was using this for a while, and I like it because 90% of the time you will be having Vampiric Touch on every single mob that's aggroed and being pulled and will be dying. So that means that Mind Blast will be dealing spread damage to everything else outside of your primary target, and it's fine. But I just think that I should have started using Shadow Crash sooner because Shadow Crash gives us an additional edge for those small mobs that, are not worth tab dotting 6, 7 times. Sometimes there's so many mobs in those trash packs that you want casts like this to make yourself relevant. Otherwise, other classes like DKs or freaking Demon Hunters or Hunters will just take all of that, clear it out, and you'll be doing like a fraction of their damage. I don't know how I feel about this, mainly because there's travel time and well, I didn't really do the what's the word? I feel like a talent like this in comparison to the other ones, you would need to do comparisons and damage meters across multiple instances to see if it's actually worthwhile and will yield better results than if you use the other ones. For this row, I was actually using mine better in the beginning of questing. I don't know why. I was just thinking when I first read this, I was like 45 seconds is a really long time. Will it make a difference? But then when I randomly decided to spec it, and the main reason I actually did was because I was in a dungeon with a priest, a shadow priest, another one, early on, and I was like, he's beating me. Why the fuck is he beating me? So I looked at his talent tree. He had this, he had this, and I think he had this. I'm not sure actually. I think he had this. But still, he had these two. And I was like, oh, all right, I'll try it out. So then I picked this up, and then I learned that it gives me two of this. So I was like, okay, this is a fantastic build. I love it, and it has been working very well for me. So when it comes to the level 50 row, I will let you know I have not tried this at all. And I don't know how it will work out because, at least right now, with the change to the way Void Eruption works, I don't have any experience with Drain for Insanity. I use this for a short period of time just to see what it's like. And I was kind of expecting Void Form to last a decent amount of time, but it's actually pretty garbage, especially if you are unable to cast Devouring Plague, because Devouring Plague is pretty costly, 50 Insanity, that's half your bar, and you're also draining at the same time. So the thing is, if you use it incorrectly where you don't have Devouring Plague on the target and you don't end up refreshing it with Void Bolt, then I feel like you are discouraged from casting Devouring Plague, because if you do, you're probably going to drop out of Void form because you can't generate Insanity fast enough, or the drain is already reaching the point where you're just bringing yourself out of it faster by sacrificing that 50 Insanity. So I am sad because I liked the way that it was before, where basically anytime you're at 60, you can just go into Void form without a fucking cooldown to it. I probably should have tried this out in a dungeon or something, but I just don't want to predict wrong and die. It's kind of annoying. So, because these two options are not very appealing, I decided to go with this one. I guess I haven't actually mentioned if I enjoy the way it is right now. I think it's pretty decent. Vampiric Embrace also actually heals for a pretty good amount. So I have for the longest time just viewed this spell to be shit. I don't know why. I think most of the time it has been shit, so I don't even think to use that much. Or maybe I expect too much out of it, thinking that, like, oh, if I pop it, I can keep the whole party alive from AoE damage or something. No. I think the purpose of it has always been to assist with healing, but nothing too drastic. But I actually noticed a few times while questing that when I'm low, like, I don't know, maybe 25% from a mob that's hitting decently hard, and I pop this, it actually heals me up pretty well. Like, it can definitely cap me off if he isn't chunking me every time. Like, it definitely makes a difference. So I would say this is something you have to get used to using more and more. Please keep in mind that these are my opinions and that I'm not stating them to try to convince you to be on my side. I'm just saying how I feel and what I think. If you disagree, that's perfectly okay. Thank you for watching. And I hoped you liked seeing me play this game again, even if it's temporary.